Hello, everyone. Welcome back to It's Called Football as we get ready to bring you all the action from Matchday 11 of the Premier League, set to kick off with the first game on Saturday. Just look ahead at some of the fixtures that we can look forward to this weekend. Quite a lot of the games take place on the Saturday this weekend, with a couple on Sunday and then one to round it off on Monday. On Saturday, we see Manchester United travel to Fulham. West Ham travel to Brentford in, surprise, a London derby. At this point, hopefully, new viewers to the channel and new followers of the league might be starting to pick up on which clubs are the London ones, given the number of London rivalries and derbies that we've been seeing so far this season. We then see Crystal Palace travel to Burnley and Brighton travel to Everton in what could be a very, very good game if both teams play as well as we've seen their heights at this season. And then we have Manchester City hosting Bournemouth. Now, out of these games, Fulham obviously have not been in amazing form this season, but they did manage to rescue themselves a draw at Brighton, which is very tough to do. Manchester United themselves have not been in amazing form, having lost at home to their local rivals, Manchester City, last weekend by a score of 3-0. They also then lost their cup match midweek 3-0 as well at home against Newcastle. So United not exactly going into this game on the best of form, but sometimes that's exactly what drives players to turn it around. And I would say this match for United, with all respect to Fulham, this is a game that United need to be looking at winning. West Ham actually are coming off the back of an excellent win in midweek in the cup against Arsenal, which will have definitely made them feel a little better about their squad and their performances. And hopefully West Ham will have forgotten about their defeat at home to Everton last weekend. Brentford did not have a match in midweek, but that means that they're well rested for this game and did not have to play their players in midweek. And that means that they should be, on paper at least, they should have more energy. Crystal Palace and Burnley is a tough fixture to kind of call. Normally, I would say Palace are sort of heavy favorites for this one, but Burnley are at home and obviously will at some point need to start delivering results because they performed poorly in midweek in their match against Everton, where they lost as well. Burnley have developed a little bit of a strange habit for them of losing games even to teams that are around where they are in terms of ability. Last season in the Championship, Burnley were winning most of their games and dominating the league there. Uh, Crystal Palace is a team that, like I said, normally on paper with their players all fit, this should be a win for Palace. I still think this should be a win for Palace, but you never know. Luton managed to pull out wins at home, and Burnley should be looking to do the same now. Everton and Brighton, like I said, both teams have shown that at their best they are capable of getting results in tough atmospheres and against tough opponents. Everton's win last weekend at West Ham was hugely impressive in terms of their play. And Brighton, of course, have been impressive generally this season, especially when they play other big teams. But on the flip side of that, Brighton have also dropped silly points here and there by not winning games where they probably should have done it without breaking a sweat. Last weekend's example of their draw at home against Fulham is a prime example of that. Manchester City against Bournemouth is, on paper, it's a game that really it should go City's way without a great deal of fuss. Bournemouth can cause problems, obviously, and now that they have that chip off their shoulder about getting their first win, maybe they will play with more freedom. Maybe they'll play with a little more uh, drive to build on that result last week. But to be fair, after getting your first win of the season, traveling to the home of the champions is a very, very tall order right after that, and almost cruel, to be honest. But maybe they'll spring a surprise, but I would kind of expect City to win this one. Our other games over the weekend, we see two more games on Saturday, Sheffield United against Wolves, and then the big one on Saturday, one of the two really big fixtures this weekend, Newcastle United hosting Arsenal. Both of these teams finished in the top four last year, had excellent seasons, and they're doing well this season as well, both sides. They will be looking to improve on their performance. Now, Newcastle beat Manchester United 3-0 in their cup match midweek, and Arsenal on the flip side lost 3-1 away to West Ham. So the two teams are going in with mixed emotions or conflicting emotions, really, based on the midweek games. But if the league form is anything to go by, both of them should feel fairly confident going into this one. Nottingham Forest is the early game on Sunday as they host Aston Villa. And then we also see Luton Town, one of the promoted sides, hosting Liverpool. I have to say, I fear a little bit for Luton in that fixture. Liverpool have looked excellent this year. Their attack is always deadly, has been for the last several years, and they could blow Luton away at their own ground. I would also probably expect Aston Villa to beat Forest, although Forest at home are a very, very dogged opponent and they're not easy to break down there. And then we see another highlight fixture on Monday to round off Matchday 11 as another London derby takes place. The Pochettino derby, shall we call it. Mauricio Pochettino is the current manager of Chelsea, but he did manage Tottenham for a few years, and you could really say fairly that Tottenham have enjoyed their most successful spell, and they've looked most like a top side when Pochettino was in charge prior to this season. This season, Tottenham have looked excellent, but before this, the best they'd looked was when Pochettino had been in charge. He hasn't quite yet had that same impact at Chelsea, but this would be the time where he would perhaps really want to prove himself at the home of his former club, and I'm sure he would love to get a result against them. So just a quick reminder as to how the table looks so far with 10 games played from all sides. Tottenham Hotspur leading the way on points right now with Arsenal and Manchester City right behind them. Arsenal ahead just because of goals scored. That is the only thing separating them from Man City because the two teams have identical goal difference. Liverpool are then right behind those two sides in second and third with Aston Villa close behind them. Then we have a little bit of a gap between Villa and Newcastle and Brighton, and then Manchester United, West Ham, and Brentford bring up the rest of the top 10. As you can see, top five have pulled away just a little bit, but obviously, given the fact that, say, Newcastle and Arsenal are playing each other this weekend, that gives Newcastle a very, very good opportunity to get close to that top five again and within touching distance if they should get the win. Brighton, obviously, if they beat Everton, would then hopefully keep pace for them, and Manchester United should be aiming to get a win as well. West Ham and Brentford obviously is key because the two teams are both in the top 10. The winner would immediately start pulling away a little bit from the other one. And the bottom half sees Chelsea in 11th right now, followed by Wolves, who, like we've said a couple of times in the past, they've been quietly going about the business and starting to pick up results. Goal difference is the only thing hampering Wolves at the moment, but we'll talk a little bit more about them later in the video. Palace and Fulham are right behind the Wolves there. Again, just goal difference separating them. There are four teams on 12 points there, and one weekend could be enough to shake things up massively in this points tally. Everton and Forest are then behind them, and then there's a reasonably significant gap between Forest and the bottom four. Uh, I would say this week probably Burnley is the one that could look to try and profit, given the fact that Bournemouth is facing Manchester City and Luton Town is playing Liverpool. Uh, Burnley have the best option out of those bottom four to try and get out of those relegation places and try to get a little further away in terms of points. Should Burnley win this weekend, that could be huge for them, given the other two teams are likely, not guaranteed, and there's never anything guaranteed in football, but Bournemouth and Luton are likelier to drop points, shall we say, than Burnley is. And Sheffield United, obviously, they're playing Wolves. It's not one of the top six sides in the league in terms of all the attacking talent and all that they've faced, but Sheffield are at home, which is a good thing for them. They have delivered their best results and performances so far at home. They'll be hoping to actually turn one of those performances into a win this time. So we have two featured matches we'd recommend for you this weekend if you're able to tune in. The first one is on Saturday. Like we said, the latest match on Saturday, Newcastle United against Arsenal. Uh, like we said, huge clash, big, big, big stakes on the line, and you can guarantee it's going to be a match that is going to cause a lot of emotions. Last season, when this fixture happened towards the end of the year, it did get a little bit fiery, and some tempers started to run high. Arsenal eventually came away victorious in that fixture, but Newcastle have continued to improve since then. Arsenal obviously have been trying to improve as well. They haven't quite hit the fluid football that they were playing last year, but they are yet to lose. And so it's a finely balanced game and should be a very good match. And the second match that we would suggest is definitely the London Derby at the end of this match day on Monday, if you can. Tottenham Hotspur against Chelsea. Tottenham, the league leaders. Chelsea trying to break into the top half. Their form has been hit and miss. They've been consistently good at making chances for their forwards, but they just aren't putting them away. Like we said, this is a match that will have personal significance for Chelsea coach Mauricio Pochettino, and perhaps this is the one where he starts to finally turn things around for Chelsea. What a moment it would be for him if he could do it at the home of Tottenham, his former club. So some of the big stories to focus on and to look ahead for if you are able to catch the matches this weekend. First of all, Manchester United are, like we said already, in dire straits a little bit again. They just have not been able to hit a consistent run of good form this season. They're out of 10 games in the league so far. They have had 5 wins and 5 defeats. And for a club of United's stature, it simply isn't good enough. At some point, questions have to start being asked of the manager, of the players, because so far their fans have, to an extent correctly, but they've been blaming the owners for not investing in the team. But the fact of the matter is that United have spent lots and lots of money on lots of players that simply have not fit into their squad. It is a worry for the fans and the club as a whole. But like we said, this weekend against Fulham is a good opportunity for them to try and register a win that might push them to a consistent run of results. We've said it before on this, but maybe this is the one for them. Wolves, like we said, this is actually a huge, huge weekend for Wolves because they are playing against Sheffield United, the bottom side in the league, and Wolves have gotten results against some of the top sides in the league already. They've beaten Manchester City, they drew Newcastle, um, and I think they probably should be capable of beating Sheffield United. The reason it could be a big weekend for them is because teams around them are are playing games where they could easily lose. which means Wolves actually have a decent shot at ending this match day in the top half of the league. Given that they were a lot of people's choice to finish in the bottom three this season, that would be really big and a great statement from Wolves if they could do it. If Wolves were to win their match this weekend and Chelsea lose to Tottenham and Brentford lose to West Ham, then Wolves would leapfrog both Chelsea and Brentford into 10th place, assuming that Crystal Palace and Fulham don't win by goal margins that overtake Wolves' goal difference. So a lot of ifs and buts in there, but it's achievable, and the results that would be needed to put Wolves in the top half are very possible to occur. So they've been impressive, and it's been quite fun watching Wolves so far this season when I have seen them. Uh, and it might not hurt to tune into their match against Sheffield United, especially because of the other results that could work in Wolves' favour. Like we said, Arsenal and Newcastle last season ended up being a fiery fixture both times, actually. When Arsenal hosted, Newcastle were quite terrible for time wasting and just trying to wind down the clock because Arsenal otherwise were threatening to blow the game wide open. At the end of the day, when Arsenal hosted the meeting between these two last year, Newcastle escaped with a nil-nil draw. But Arsenal got their revenge in the return trip, which is the exact copy of the one this weekend. When Newcastle hosted, Arsenal ran away 2-0 winners, and they started to keep the ball and buy some time here and there, almost as a case of revenge against Newcastle, which led to a lot of anger from Newcastle fans. I'm sure Newcastle will be absolutely itching to put that right, and they are in good form. Arsenal slipped up in midweek. How much that will impact the squad going into this weekend remains to be seen. But it is going to be a tough game for both sides, no doubt. Mm. And Tottenham and Chelsea, like we've spoken about, cases of completely different fortunes and form so far this season. Tottenham have been flying. They've been in sensational form, honestly. 8 wins and 2 draws so far, undefeated, while Chelsea are on 3 wins, 3 draws, 4 losses, and still not looking like a stable side despite having spent nearly £1 billion in the last couple of years on trying to rebuild their squad, and so far it's not looking tons better. Um, Obviously, the manager for Chelsea, Pochettino, has personal meaning with this game, and he will definitely be wanting a result against his former club. So, what do we think is going to happen in this weekend's fixtures? Well, let's get straight into it. Fulham and Manchester United. I think Fulham were impressive against Brighton. They were resilient. They just refused to die, refused to roll over. Unfortunately, they have not been consistent at doing that. They've pulled off results here and there and then immediately gone back to simply not playing and not willing to fight multiple weekends in a row or not able to fight multiple weekends in a row. United have had 2 games in a row now where they haven't scored and let in three. I cannot see that happening here. I think United is going to win this game 2-0. Brentford and West Ham ultimately is tough. West Ham have looked very good for most of the season with a couple of off weeks in there. And Brentford, I think, have been just growing in confidence as the season has gone on. West Ham, obviously, midweek had a great win against Arsenal in the Cup. Brentford, however, last weekend had a fantastic win 2-0 away at Chelsea. So both teams are going into this game high on confidence. Ultimately, I think West Ham's players just have a little bit too much, and uh, and I think they gel just that little bit more, and I think they will escape with a victory here. Narrow one, 2-1, I think, but it will be West Ham. Burnley and Palace, I think, like I said, Burnley should be really desperate to try and get something from this game. The longer they keep going without picking up results, the more pressure there is on the manager and the players to start delivering. Palace are not necessarily too much better, but they are in a better position in the table. They have a better points tally. And ultimately, I think they just have the better team. And I think Palace will get away with this and win this 3-1. Everton, if they play well, they've started to pick up results at home now. So if they do play well, they will match Brighton very, very well. Because Brighton have had off days and off games as well. Brighton, on the other hand, if they click, they tend to be able to beat even the top sides without much difficulty. It's very tough to predict what kind of Brighton will show up on the day, or what kind of Everton for that matter. But Everton won 3-0 in their cup match against Burnley midweek, but they also, more importantly, came away with a win and a clean sheet away to West Ham last weekend, which should be very confidence boosting for them. At the end of the day, though, I think Brighton are probably the side more likely to hit their stride right from the beginning, and they have a higher ceiling in terms of how they can play. So I'm going to say that Brighton are going to hit that stride quite well and come away 2-0 winners. Weird things happen in football, but I think Manchester City will win this game against Bournemouth fairly comfortably. Not a whole lot to discuss here. I think City are just building now and starting to get into that groove, and they're going to win this game 4-0, in my opinion. And Sheffield United have been tough. They've made it a real battle for Manchester City and Manchester United when they've traveled to Sheffield United. Ultimately, both those Manchester sides came away with wins, but they were gritty, hard fought 2-1 wins, both of them. I think Wolves will have a similar problem, but I do also envision that Wolves will come away with the win. They have lots of players that can hurt Sheffield United, and last weekend Arsenal found it very easy going against Sheffield. So I think if Sheffield United play like that again, Wolves will pick them apart by a bigger scoreline than what I'm suggesting. I'm just guessing that they will show a little more fight. I think Newcastle is looking sensational, and they're not necessarily given the amount of credit they deserve. Their manager, Eddie Howe, has had them playing great football and mostly picking up impressive results. At home, they've been quite a beast to handle. And Arsenal, I worry, are going through a little bit of a dip in confidence after that West Ham result. I am not sure why, but my gut instinct is saying that Newcastle will end Arsenal's unbeaten start to the season this weekend by a score of 2-1. But it's a knife edge of a match. I think little decisions will make the difference here. So it remains to be seen who gets the moments of magic. I don't know why, but I'm thinking Forest and Villa is going to be a bit of a goal fest. Forest tend to be good at home, they tend to score at home, but Villa are on cloud nine and higher, if such a thing exists right now. Ultimately, I think Villa just have a little too much power throughout their team, and it'll be too much for Forest to handle. But I do think Forest will breach the Villa backline a couple times. Ultimately, I think Aston Villa will win this game 4-2. Luton and Liverpool. Honestly, this game could be much more than what I'm predicting. I'm just hoping, really, for Luton's sake, that they will show enough fight to contain Liverpool to a reasonably respectable result. I know 3-0 doesn't seem all that respectable, but I think Liverpool won't have any problem winning this game. They just may have to work for that first goal. And then once they do that, Luton will have to chase the game because they're playing in front of their fans who will want to see the team go for it. Ultimately, Liverpool have the players to then counter that quite well, which is why I think it'll be a comfortable win for them. And then finally, Tottenham and Chelsea. I'm going to say here that Spurs win this one 3-1. Chelsea have looked disjointed for the most part, aside from their home game against Arsenal and a couple of flashes of good possession and good football in some of their games. They simply are not stringing results together, and they're just not looking gelled as a unit, as a full team. And so I'm thinking Tottenham, on the other hand, have looked quite good. They've been lucky that they haven't had too many injuries to key players. All their best attacking players are kind of in form, contributing to goals. And yeah, I think it'll be reasonably comfortable for Tottenham, and they're going to come away 3-1 victors in this game. That is where we are going to leave you for today. It should be a great weekend. Obviously, if you're able to tune into any of the matches, please do. It doesn't just have to be the featured ones we recommended. All of them are probably going to be quite good. I expect goals in pretty much every game this weekend. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please drop a like on it, subscribe to the channel, share it with any friends of yours that you think might be interested. And we will speak to you soon after Matchday 11 is complete. In that time, enjoy, take care, and remember, it's called football.